The King arrived here at Westminster Cathedral without the Queen. We're told she is suffering from acute sinusitis.
For years, the royal family has faced whispers of scandal, but nothing stirs public curiosity more than sudden absences at key events. When the Duchess of Kent was laid to rest,
it's been announced that the Duchess of Kent, the cousin of Queen Elizabeth and wife of the Duke of Kent, has died.
The world noticed one glaring detail. Queen Camilla was nowhere to be seen. Her absence wasn't just a minor oversight. It raised troubling questions and fueled a wave of unsettling speculation. So, was it health, politics, or something far darker that kept her away? What truly happened behind palace doors during that solemn farewell? The royal absence. The British royal family recently came together to honor the late Duchess of Kent at her funeral. A solemn event that drew wide attention both in the United Kingdom and abroad. Yet one face many expected to see was missing: Queen Camilla. Her absence raised eyebrows immediately, not just because of the significance of the occasion, but also because she had been a steady presence at such high-profile royal duties. The palace swiftly issued an official explanation to calm public curiosity. According to their statement, Camilla was suffering from acute sinusitis, an illness that, while not life-threatening, can be debilitating and painful. With great regret, Her Majesty the Queen has withdrawn from attendance at this afternoon's Requiem Mass for the Duchess of Kent, as she is recovering from acute sinusitis. Her thoughts and prayers will be with the Duke of Kent and all the family. It was a carefully worded message, sympathetic yet firm, leaving no room for misunderstanding. Still, it did little to quiet the speculation that began circulating almost instantly. Many wondered if this was more than just a case of illness. Could Queen Camilla be quietly preparing to cancel other upcoming appearances as well? The timing of Queen Camilla's absence fueled speculation, as it coincided with the royal family's upcoming state visit hosting Donald and Melania Trump.
President of the United States, Donald Trump, is at Windsor Castle tonight preparing for a state banquet hosted by the King and Queen.
A high-profile, politically sensitive event where her absence would be glaring. The palace clarified she hopes to have recovered sufficiently to attend, carefully balancing optimism with health uncertainty. While some believe her illness is genuine, given the severity of sinusitis, others suspect deeper motives. Critics argue Camilla may be signaling reluctance to engage in the Trump visit, whether for personal or political reasons, leaving royal watchers divided over whether her absence is coincidence or calculated. Adding another layer of intrigue, a friend of the Queen stepped forward to shut down such rumors. Speaking to the Daily Beast, the friend insisted there is no way she would shirk her duty. She knows how important this is to the government and her husband. Her job is supporting him. This comment underscores a fundamental truth about Queen Camilla's role. Her duty is not just to the public, but also to her husband, King Charles III. She has long positioned herself as his steadfast partner, sharing the weight of royal responsibility. Still, speculation has its own momentum. Once it begins, it rarely dies out quickly. For years, Camilla has lived under a spotlight that magnifies her every move, and this incident is no exception. Was her absence from the Duchess of Kent's funeral truly a matter of health, or does it reflect deeper tensions within the royal schedule? Is the palace trying to avoid a diplomatic faux pas, or are they simply managing expectations in case her recovery takes longer than hoped? Whatever the truth, the unfolding narrative highlights the delicate balance of monarchy in the modern world. Royals are expected to appear tireless, ever-present, and above personal limitations. Yet, they are human. They fall ill, grow weary, and sometimes must bow out, just like anyone else. The difference is that their decisions ripple across political, social, and international waters. For Queen Camilla, this moment is a test of both perception and reality. If she recovers quickly and fulfills her role in the Trump visit, she will silence her critics and reaffirm her commitment. But if she is forced to step back again, the rumors will only grow louder, feeding a narrative that perhaps she is more selective about her appearances than the palace would like the public to believe. Until then, all eyes remain on Windsor Castle, waiting to see if the Queen's recovery aligns with her hopes. For now, the story stands at the crossroads of health, duty, and speculation, an all too familiar place for Britain's royal family. Yet, beneath the polished words, whispers of suspicion began to stir. Was this truly a matter of health, or was it history resurfacing? Could it be linked to her absence at Diana's burial and memorial service? Let's find out. Shadows of friendship and betrayal. Diana Spencer entered the royal family as a shy teenager, unprepared for the heavy burden of marrying the heir to the throne. Instead of warmth, she found a rigid world where protocol outweighed compassion and vulnerability was seen as weakness. The fairy tale image quickly crumbled as her husband, Prince Charles, and Queen Elizabeth offered little emotional support. Beneath the dazzling public appearances, Diana endured profound loneliness. Her isolation was written in her eyes, revealed in her hesitant movements, and echoed in the silence of her private chambers, a stark contrast to the grandeur surrounding her. It was in this fragile state, when Diana seemed most vulnerable, that help appeared from an unexpected corner of the monarchy. Catherine, Duchess of Kent, a woman often overlooked in royal discussions, emerged as her quiet lifeline. Unlike others in the royal circle, Catherine carried herself with a gentle dignity, marked by years of enduring the same rigid protocols that now suffocated Diana. But unlike the rest, she understood the crushing weight of palace expectations and chose compassion over judgment. Catherine reached out, not with grand gestures, but with something Diana had been starved of: simple kindness. She became her listener, her confidant, her anchor. The two women could often be seen slipping away into hidden palace corners or walking through lush gardens away from the eyes of courtiers. Their conversations would flow easily, moving from laughter to tears, from small joys to the deepest fears. In Catherine, Diana finally found something no crown could give her: genuine friendship. Diana trusted her enough to share the secrets that tormented her heart. She spoke openly about her insecurities, her struggle to fit into a world that demanded perfection, and, most painfully, her heartbreak over Charles's deepening relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles. To Diana, Camilla was not just a rival. She was the shadow that loomed over her marriage, the source of endless sorrow that seemed impossible to escape. Catherine listened without judgment. To her, Diana was not just an in-law caught in a storm of royal politics. She was a kindred soul, a woman suffering in silence while the world assumed she lived a dream. Publicly, the bond between the two was hard to miss. At formal gatherings, Diana often leaned subtly toward Catherine, as though drawing strength from her presence. Catherine, with her calm and reassuring demeanor, seemed to shield Diana from the coldness that often surrounded her. Their connection was more than friendship. It was survival, a rare moment of warmth in a life otherwise filled with icy distance. But then came that fateful night in August 1997, when news spread from Paris that Diana's life had been cut short in a horrific car crash. The world froze in shock, millions wept, and tributes poured in from every corner of the globe. Yet among the grieving royals, Catherine's pain carried a particular depth. She had lost not only a family member but also the friend who had trusted her with her most fragile truths. In the days that followed, when the palace scrambled to present a united front, Catherine stood apart, while many in the royal circle preferred silence, urging the world to move on. Catherine quietly gave voice to what others dared not say aloud: that Diana's story had ended too abruptly, that some unanswered questions and shadows refused to fade. She carried those thoughts not as conspiracy but as a burden of love, the ache of someone who had seen Diana's suffering firsthand and who knew her wounds ran deeper than the public ever realized. For Catherine, Camilla was never simply another figure in Charles's orbit. She represented the wound Diana could never escape, the heartache that shaped her story, and perhaps the sorrow that led to her tragic end. And long after Diana was gone, Catherine held on to that memory, carrying both the beauty of their friendship and the haunting weight of unfinished stories left behind. In which other ways did Diana enjoy Catherine's warm guidance? How helpful did Diana find her during her child-rearing years? Let's delve deeper into the bond that the two women shared. A bond beyond protocol. When people think about Princess Diana, the image that often comes to mind is that of a beautiful young woman caught in the glare of the world's attention, navigating the pressures of royal life while trying to remain true to herself. But behind the glittering tiaras and the newspaper headlines, Diana had a small circle of confidants, people who offered her guidance, comfort, and the rare gift of genuine friendship. Among them was Catherine, Duchess of Kent, a woman whose warmth and wisdom became a steady presence in Diana's turbulent world. Their connection began at a pivotal moment, Diana's engagement to Prince Charles. At just 19, she was thrust into a world defined by rigid traditions, endless rules, and constant scrutiny. Few could truly understand the weight that fell upon her shoulders. The Duchess of Kent, older and more experienced in navigating the expectations of royal life, stepped in not just as a guide but as a mentor and almost like an elder sister. She explained the unspoken codes of protocol, the little things Diana needed to know to survive palace life. More importantly, she offered something Diana desperately needed: kindness without judgment. The two women developed a bond that was far from formal. It wasn't simply a relationship of obligation or duty. It was genuine, heartfelt, and filled with laughter. They shared moments of joy that broke through the stiffness of palace routines. Diana, often described as shy and sensitive, found in the Duchess someone she could confide in freely. Through their letters, Catherine witnessed Diana's excitement during the early years of motherhood. Diana would gush about William and Harry, her two greatest treasures, and the Duchess could sense how deeply fulfilled she felt in her role as a mother, even while her role as a royal remained complicated. Friendship, in its truest form, is tested not during times of celebration, but in moments of difficulty. As Diana's marriage to Charles crumbled under the weight of public pressure and private heartbreak, Catherine remained steadfast. She didn't turn away when the tabloids feasted on scandal, nor did she judge Diana for the choices she made in her search for happiness. Instead, she listened, supported, and reminded Diana of her worth. To the Duchess of Kent, loyalty meant standing by a friend even when the world turned cold. The tragic events of August 1997 shook the world. Princess Diana's sudden death at just 36 years old left millions grieving. But for the Duchess of Kent, the pain was far more personal. She had lost not only a cherished friend, but also someone she regarded as almost family. Catherine's sorrow was compounded by a haunting awareness. It wasn't only her grief that would endure, but that of the royal family, especially Diana's sons. William and Harry, then just boys, would have to carry the burden of loss for the rest of their lives. Yet, in the midst of mourning, Catherine found admiration for the young princes. She respected the resilience they showed in the face of unbearable tragedy and valued the care taken to protect their privacy as they grew older. In her eyes, safeguarding their ability to live as normal a life as possible was perhaps the most important way to honor Diana's memory. Reflecting on her friendship with Diana, the Duchess of Kent came to a powerful realization. True friendship is not about being present only when times are easy. It is about loyalty without conditions, compassion without judgment, and understanding without the need to take sides, even when marriages fall apart or the world points fingers. For Catherine, Diana's death was more than a personal loss. It left a wound in the heart of the monarchy itself. The absence of the people's princess was a shadow that would linger for generations, a reminder of what was lost and what might have been. And for the Duchess of Kent, the memory of Diana remained not just as a royal figure, but as a beloved friend, someone she had laughed with, cried with, and stood beside through life's storms. Camilla and Catherine were distant, despite Charles' closeness with the Duchess of Kent. Could this be due to Camilla's role in Diana's marriage? Could it be guilt on Camilla's end? Let's dive into the details of Camilla's rise in the royal family. The rise of Camilla, the fall of trust. In the years after Diana's passing, something once unthinkable began to unfold before the eyes of the public. The relationship between Prince Charles and Camilla, once shrouded in secrecy and whispered about in drawing rooms and tabloids, slowly moved into the open. What had once been the subject of scandal gradually transformed into something tolerated, then accepted, and eventually even celebrated. The couple appeared together at events, their smiles no longer stolen in shadows, but displayed under the bright flashes of cameras. For many, it was the story of love surviving against the odds. For others, it was a painful rewriting of history. Among those who struggled most with this new reality was Catherine. Every newspaper headline lauding Camilla, every cheer from the crowd at her side, seemed to deepen Catherine's unease. She could not scrub from her mind the memory of Diana's anguished face, the tears shed by a woman betrayed in both love and loyalty. To Catherine, embracing Camilla meant forgetting Diana, and that was something she could never bring herself to do. On the outside, Catherine carried herself with the composure and grace expected of her royal position. She smiled when required, bowed to protocol, and stood tall at official engagements. But behind the careful posture, cracks showed. Her encounters with Camilla betrayed the truth. At their mildest, conversations between the two women were stiff, brief, and marked by a politeness so brittle it threatened to snap at any moment. At their worst, the air around them grew heavy with hostility, their words clipped, their gazes sharp. It was almost as though Diana herself lingered between them, an invisible presence impossible to ignore. To Catherine, Diana was the cherished friend whose memory she guarded fiercely. To Camilla, Diana was the ghost who would forever overshadow her, the reminder of a love triangle that no amount of public approval could fully erase. Both women were acutely aware of it. Both bore the weight of that unspoken truth. By the year 2003, Catherine's patience had worn thin. Though the official announcement cited personal reasons for her withdrawal from royal duties, the reality was much heavier. She no longer wished to lend her presence to ceremonies and gatherings where Charles and Camilla were now the focal point. To stand in their shadow felt like a betrayal of the loyalty she still held for Diana. And so, quietly but firmly, Catherine stepped back. Her public appearances became rare, her absence more and more noticeable. Each passing year widened the gap between her and Camilla until whatever thread of civility had once bound them snapped completely. When Catherine eventually passed away, the royal household moved into mourning. Black clothes were donned, tributes flowed, and preparations for her final farewell were made. It was expected that the family would come together in unity for the occasion. Yet one face was conspicuously missing: Camilla. The explanation offered to the press was simple: sinusitis, a bothersome but minor ailment, one that could make appearances uncomfortable but hardly insurmountable. Still, the excuse rang hollow to many. How could a woman of Camilla's position miss such a significant moment in royal life over something so trivial? The murmurs began almost immediately. Was this really illness or something else entirely? Some whispered it was avoidance, that Camilla could not face the cold stares that might greet her, nor the quiet judgment from those who had known Catherine's feelings all too well. Others suggested it was a deliberate choice, cloaked in medical jargon, a way to sidestep a farewell heavy with meaning and history. Whatever the truth, the absence did not go unnoticed. Instead, it deepened the mystery, adding one more layer to the already complicated tapestry of Charles, Camilla, Diana, and those who had loved her. In death, as in life, Catherine's stance toward Camilla seemed unshaken, and in absence, Camilla's shadow grew larger still, an enigma that the world continued to question, long after the funeral bells had ceased to toll. Why did Camilla's absence arouse suspicion? Could it be history repeating itself? Why was she absent from Diana's funeral and memorial service? Let's find out. Camilla's dilemma. Reports at the time suggested that Camilla was never truly eager to attend the ceremony. According to those close to the couple, she had voiced her hesitation more than once, quietly wishing she could avoid the spotlight altogether. Yet, Prince Charles managed to persuade her otherwise. He reminded her that standing by his side was not only expected of her as his wife, but also important in her delicate role as stepmother to his sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. For Charles, her presence was symbolic. It showed unity, stability, and a picture of a blended royal family trying to move forward. But what started as a reluctant act of support quickly spiraled into something far more uncomfortable. The public mood, already divided about Camilla's place in the monarchy, turned sour with surprising speed. Criticism began to spread like wildfire, and what could have been dismissed as minor murmurs of disapproval soon grew into a loud chorus of outrage. Among the most vocal opponents were close friends of the late Princess Diana. Rosa Monckton, a confidant of Diana, did not hold back in her public statements. She insisted that Diana herself would have been astonished to see Camilla at such a ceremony, a sharp remark that struck deep with those who still cherished Diana's memory. Monckton went further, labeling Camilla's attendance as inappropriate, a word that carried the weight of moral judgment. These remarks resonated powerfully with the British public, who had never fully let go of their affection for Diana or their anger at how her marriage had ended. The tabloids, never ones to miss a scandal, seized on the controversy with relentless energy. Headlines and columns painted Camilla as overstepping, stirring old wounds and reminding the nation of the love triangle that had once dominated global news. For readers, the story was not just about a ceremony. It became another chapter in the ongoing saga of Diana versus Camilla, a rivalry that continued to live in the nation's collective imagination. By Sunday afternoon, the pressure had begun to take its toll on Camilla. According to reports, she was visibly shaken, her composure cracking under the weight of the criticism. The Daily Mail described her as distressed, struggling to mask her discomfort as cameras flashed and public scrutiny bore down on her. Every look, every gesture seemed to be analyzed, and for Camilla, who had always preferred privacy over spectacle, the ordeal felt suffocating. What began as a reluctant duty, an attempt to fulfill her role as a supportive wife, had turned into a public storm that she could not control. Camilla found herself caught in a web of conflicting forces: the expectations of the royal family, her own unease about stepping into a role linked so closely with Diana, and the unrelenting hostility of a public that still mourned the people's princess. It was as though Diana's shadow loomed larger than ever, a reminder that even years after her passing, her influence on the monarchy and the hearts of the people remained unshakable. For Camilla, the ceremony was not just another royal engagement. It was a painful lesson in how deeply Diana's memory was woven into British culture, and how fragile her own acceptance within the monarchy still was. Each disapproving headline, each angry comment, and each sympathetic nod to Diana only deepened her sense of isolation. In that moment, it became clear that no matter how much time had passed, the wounds of the past were far from healed. In the end, what was meant to be a simple act of duty for Camilla became a defining moment, one that exposed the tensions at the very heart of the modern royal family. She stood there, uncomfortably poised between loyalty to her husband, reluctance in her own heart, and the haunting reminder that Diana's legacy was not just history. It was still alive, pulsing through the veins of a nation that had yet to decide whether Camilla truly belonged. How did the public perceive Camilla's absence from the funeral? Will they possibly accept the excuse of illness? Let's take a look at the public reaction to the Queen's vacant seat at the funeral. A final farewell, marked by absence. To many observers, Camilla's absence was louder than any spoken word. It wasn't just that she didn't show up, it was what that absence seemed to mean. Whispers quickly began to circulate, and interpretations clung to the air like a heavy fog. Some voices insisted that Catherine herself, had she been able to speak, would not have wanted Camilla present. This was, after all, not just a funeral. It was a final moment of respect for a woman remembered for her loyalty and quiet dignity, someone who had stood by Diana during her darkest days. For many, Camilla's presence would have been out of place, almost an intrusion into sacred space, a space that once carried the echoes of Diana's deepest wounds. Others, however, looked at it differently. They believed Camilla had made the choice herself, not because she was uninvited, but because she was unwilling. The cathedral, grand and solemn, was also filled with ghosts of the past. It was a place layered with memories of a woman whose shadow Camilla could never escape, no matter how firmly she sat on the throne or how many titles she carried. To step into that space would have meant facing an audience that still remembered Diana's pain, an audience that might never forgive the part Camilla played in that story. It was easier, perhaps, to remain away, allowing silence to stand in her place. In the end, the absence became its own kind of presence. Catherine was mourned with grace, her friends and loved ones gathering to say goodbye. Yet, alongside the grief, there was an unmistakable awareness of what was missing. People noticed the empty chair where the Queen Consort could have been. That vacancy became a symbol in itself, a powerful, silent statement. It fueled the belief that this decision had little to do with health, as the official explanation suggested, and everything to do with history. The past, with all its pain and rivalry, had dictated Camilla's choice more than any physical ailment. And so the story seemed to fold back on itself, like a circle coming to a close. On one side stood Catherine, the gentle friend, the quiet supporter who had given Diana comfort when the storm of royal life became too much to bear. On the other stood Camilla, the woman whose name was forever tied to Diana's heartbreak, the figure who could never fully escape being cast as the other woman, no matter how many years passed. Even in death, the two women were set apart, divided by loyalties and scars that time had never healed. The palace's official statement, polished and proper, tried to tie the moment into something simple and neat. But the truth was not so easily contained. Behind the carefully chosen words lay a deeper reality. The conflict that began in whispers, in secret meetings, in tears shed behind palace walls, had never truly ended. It had only changed shape, hiding itself in silences and absences, in the glances of those who still remembered the pain. For many, the memory of Diana lingered in that cathedral more strongly than ever, like a ghost, haunting and unresolved. Her story, tied so deeply to both women, seemed to rise again in the moment Camilla stayed away. It was as if Diana herself was present, reminding the world that some wounds never fade, that some rivalries remain etched in history forever. In that sense, Camilla's absence was not just a personal decision. It was a reminder that the past cannot always be rewritten, no matter how much time passes, no matter how carefully narratives are polished. Some stories cling too tightly, and some ghosts refuse to be silenced. So, what do you think about Camilla's absence at the funeral? Could it really be related to Diana? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.